All right, hello everybody, this is Miss Dunning and we are going to be talking about evolution and natural selection today. So I'm going to go ahead and start my PowerPoint off with a video that gives us a quick description of what evolution is.
The Galapagos Islands. Young English naturalist Charles Darwin collects animal and plant specimens for study. His observations on these islands will be fundamental in formulating his theories, which many years later will be published in his great work on the origin of species. A revolutionary book that changed the way biology was understood, giving rise to new scientific theories. In this book, Darwin laid down the scientific principle that each species has always been the way we know it today. Rather, each one had changed and altered over time. Three concepts are important for understanding Charles Darwin's theory: natural selection, evolution, and the origin of species. In animals and plants, random trait mutations and modifications can appear. For example, a moth that is born a different color than its parents. Imagine that this mutation or new trait improves an animal's ability to survive in its environment. Animals with this favorable trait would be better adapted to where they live and have a better chance to feed themselves and to reproduce than other animals of the same species without that trait. The offspring of parents with favorable characteristics will normally inherit those same characteristics. So, generation after generation, a trait that was rare occurs more frequently, becoming the norm within the species. This process is called natural selection. With the passing of time, these favorable mutations accumulate and species change, constantly adapting to an environment that never stops changing. Here's how the evolution of species takes place. Two groups of animals of the same species that adapt to two different environments over time can come to constitute different species. This way, a process as simple as natural selection helps us to understand the origin of species. Charles Darwin was one of the most important men of his era, and many consider him among the most influential scientists in history. His theories on the origin and evolution of species were very new for his time and are still studied and discussed to this day. Darwin died in 1882. His legacy changed the thinking of an era and opened the door to a new way of understanding science, the world, and the role humans play on this planet.
All right, so that told us a little bit about Charles Darwin and gave us some background on evolution. So we're going to go ahead and continue with our PowerPoint. All right, so we just watched the video, so we can skip that. Start from this side. Okay, so, but where can I see evolution and natural selection occur today? Good question, Mr. Pencil. So here is a good example of natural selection and evolution that would be more prevalent today. So dogs, everybody loves dogs, right? So dogs evolved from their common ancestor of the gray wolf. Now, in different parts of the world, dogs developed a little bit more differently based on their environment. So as you can see here, dogs in Europe are a lot different than dogs you'd see in India. And then from there, as these dogs evolved into other different types of breeds of dogs, evolution and natural selection is still occurring to this day, maybe just not as rapidly as some might think. But what is natural selection? So natural selection, we've got Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace. They developed the theory of evolution, which is that traits can be passed down to offspring that allow the organisms to adapt to the environment better than the other organisms of the same species. This makes it easier for them to survive in their different environment and reproduce, which leads to evolution. Now, okay, so this would be a good example of natural selection. So this ancestor, the finch, in different environments, adapted with natural selection. So you've got the insect-eating finch, so they've got a smaller, pointier beak to get into small crevices to be able to eat the insects. You've got the woodpecker type of insect-eating finch, so that it can eat the bugs that are trying to hide within the woods of the trees in the bark. And then you've got seed-eating finches, which don't need quite as much of a point to collect seeds. They have a bigger mouth so that they could probably hold more seeds. So just in their environment, how the finch developed and adapted. So here would be a couple more examples. You've got camels. Camels in South America look a lot different than camels in North Africa. And same thing with camels in Asia. They've got 2 humps. This one's only got 1. Another couple of examples, some of these placental animals evolved into marsupials so that they can, just like in a kangaroo, how they have a pouch, the marsupial animals have evolved to have a pouch for their babies based on their different environments. And here's one more example, just with even the skeletons of animals. So you've got these bones of different animals. A lot of them must have some sort of common ancestor, because as you can see, their bones, they have similar bone structures, but they've adapted a little bit differently for the different tasks that they have to do as that specific species. And here's more of a close-up image of those bones so that you can see from a human to a dog to a bird and even to a whale. A human isn't much like a whale. But if you look at their bone structure between these animals, it's pretty similar, which is very interesting to think about. So here's a big misconception associated with evolution, which is that humans are descended directly from monkeys. So no, your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparent is not a monkey. Okay, I know you've probably seen this image a lot. It's one of the main images that is associated with evolution, but we do have common ancestors with apes, and we share over 90% of chimpanzees' genetic sequence, but our common ancestor was actually neither a human nor an ape. Scientists are still not quite sure what exactly our ancestor was, but at some point down the line, we shared similarities in our genetic sequence with the chimpanzees, but we do not directly descend from the monkeys. All right, so thank you all for listening to my presentation on evolution. And if you ever want to learn more about evolution or hear about it in more detail, this is a funny video that I had made, and it talks about evolution more in depth. It's got some laughs in there, so if you are looking for more evolution details, this is a great place to go. All right. But thank everybody. I want to thank you for watching my video and enjoy the rest of your evening.